Howdy, it's tubalcain again. I haven't done a video in a long time in my series called What Makes It Work. So I thought I'd do another one today, and I hope people would be interested in this. And I have touched on this. I don't know if other people have made a video in this regards or not, but there are really two main different kinds of milling machine vices. Just a standard vise like this Bridgeport vise. This is a 5-incher. This is a 4-inch angle lock vise. They are constructed very differently than a standard vise. Now you can tell one from across the room, and there are other brands now as well, usually imports. But the screw in a standard vise will be right about in the middle of the movable jaw. The screw in an angle lock type of vise, an angle lock is a trademark of the Kurt company. This is a Kurt vise given to me by Wayne Fitch. The screw will always be below the movable jaw. And I'm going to take this apart and explain to you what's going on inside of there to make this vise so unique. And remember, the advantages are, and I made a video on that, I'll give you the link here in just a second, is that for each pound of pressure against the work, there's 1/2 pound of pressure downwards, which keeps the work from lifting and keeps this movable jaw from lifting, which there is a marked tendency for it to do in a standard vise. So let's get started. Some of you may have watched this video, Benefits of an Angle Lock Vise, tips number 520. In that video I talk about really why is this vise so special, what does it do, because I will not repeat all of that in this video. This is the bottom of the vise, and you may have watched a recent video where I made the keys to fit the bottom of the vise to align it with the T-slots on the closing mill. And this is only a 4-inch vise, and it's just the perfect size for that closing mill. And this is the video regarding the keys for the angle lock vise. If you desire, look up under Google Patents. This patent number here is the original patent, filed in '66 and issued in '68, and that is about the time I became aware of them, in the late '60s. And saw their advertising in the trade magazines. I was just amazed by it. Notice the appearance here is really quite a bit different from the final product, which is often true with patent drawings. This is a wonderful patent drawing showing the interior view of what's going on. I'll get back to this in a minute and talk a little bit more about it. And that patent was by the inventor William Cuban. I wonder if that has something to do with the name Kurt. And it was issued, of course, to the Kurt company. And of course there are 3 pages of legalese which no one wants to read and would require a Philadelphia lawyer to decipher. Here is the tag and the serial number, and I love their original logo here. Notice that the L is at an angle, not unlike the angle that you'll see inside the vise. I don't know what year this one was manufactured. Well, let me take it apart and show you how it's made. There is no need for me to remove the 2 hardened replaceable jaws, so I'm going to turn it upside down and remove these 2 cap screws, which will loosen the fixed jaw. Notice that this jaw has a key. Next, there's a set screw in this center hole here that needs to be backed off a bit. Now the jaw can be lifted out of there, like that. If you need to take the nut out, and this whole thing here is the nut, it's quite a large nut. Now it's free to remove and take out of there. Now this is the principle of the entire thing. Notice this casting here is milled at a 45-degree angle, And the corresponding surface in here, which is pretty hard to measure, but I made up just a simple little 45-degree piece of paper. But you can see that's also 45 degrees, or maybe you can't see that, but it is. You have to take my word. Now that is not machined. There just would be no way of machining that. So it's a cored surface, but there's a bit of a dimple in there. And the purpose of the dimple is to hold this little hemispherical part, which I already took out, but it goes in there like that, and it's just loose. It has to be held in with a little bit of grease as you assemble it. So that's an important little part. I'm going to assemble this now without putting it into the vise itself, but you can see how those two 45s fit together like that, and then the set screw, which is still in place there, is tightened down or snugged down to remove any backlash or play in there. It's very simple to remove the screw, and I think that this mechanism here was made in different ways over the year, but loosen up the set screw and just unscrew the collar. There's lots of other parts here, but I'm going to talk more about that in another video where I actually rebuild this and do a semi-restoration. By the way, there is a thrust bearing right here. One thing that's kind of unique on this vise is that the thread on the screw is very short. This is the thread right here. That's all just relief. And the nut is very long. The nut, this is the nut, is threaded really from one end clear to the other. That's kind of unusual, just the opposite of what you normally see. This is what you typically see, a very long threaded screw, and there's the brass nut, which I don't know exactly how long it is, but generally they're not very long. Alright, now I used to know what vectors were and all that, and formulas for that when I had physics, but again, there is a little hemisphere in there. This is a new one out of the repair kit, and I'll replace that eventually, but that is just to take up the misalignment and all of that, because that is in a a rough surface in there, unmachined surface, so that helps it align. That's what that's for. But as you tighten the screw, and this is a left-hand thread, what's happening here is that at this point here, it's an inclined plane, and not only is it moving it in this direction, but it's forcing it down in this direction. In approximately a 2-to-1 ratio, at least that's what they tell me. For every 2 pounds of force this way, there's 1 pound of force down, which holds the jaw down, and if it holds the jaw down, it holds the work down. And that's what it's all about there, the little inclined plane. And that's how a Kurt vise works. This is a page out of the Schar's catalog, and I don't think they'll mind me showing this at all, but they call it a tight lock vise. And there is a little sketch, again, of what's happening, and you can see it's just exactly what I have shown you. So I think the patents must have run out. Go ahead and pause your video and read that, should the spirit move you. LittleMachineShop.com, I think you're all familiar with it, but that's a page out of their catalog, or it might have been their website, I'm not sure. And they make these vises in a small size, 3 and 4 inch, but there's a real nice sketch of how that little hemisphere, they call it spherical, but it's hemisphere, how that works and the forces therein involved. This is a genuine Kurt picture of the angle lock. Notice the registered trademark there. And there again you can see the little hemisphere. And there's that set screw that I talked about that needs to be tightened in assembly. And they tell you here again, each pound of force in that direction induces 1/2 pound of force downward. That's a real nice sketch there. Also note that on these vices, the hardened jaws can be taken off and put on the outside here, which allows you to hold much larger work than the capacity of the vise. But pause your video and study that, and it may help you understand, or is this so simple everybody already knew it? Alright, let's reassemble it. Back in goes the nut. A dab of grease to hold the little hemisphere in place. And then we take up the play with this set screw. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. Do you find it interesting to note that there's no other way that this movable jaw is held into place? Let's compare it real quickly to that Bridgeport vise. You can see this Bridgeport vise, or just about any other brand, has some way to hold the jaw to keep it from falling out and to tighten it down. A set of gibs or something like this piece here that is bolted on, and there's one on each side. What I'm not telling you here is that you must very carefully clean everything and lubricate it. I'm not really doing that because this is coming apart again in a few minutes. So put the key into place and the jaw. So it isn't just the bolts that hold it in place, it's the key that aligns it and gives it strength. And from the bottom side, 2 cap screws. And of course they would be tightened down. And that completes the assembly. It's that simple. And so when the workpiece is installed in a Kurt angle lock vise and tightened down, again for each 10 pounds of pressure going this way, there's 5 pounds of pressure down this way, keeps it from lifting, tilting both the jaw and the workpiece. And that is how an angle lock vise works. Hope you liked the video. This is tubalcain, and I'll see you in my next video.